I am Jim Collison, live from our virtual studios, literally today around the world. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on November 13th, 2020. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you're listening live, love to have you join us in our chat room. It's just available for you. Actually, on the live page, there's a link right above me there. It'll take you to the YouTube page that has the chat in it. Many of you have found your way into the chat room, and you can ask your questions live. You're listening after the fact, maybe as a podcast or on YouTube. It's a recorded version. You can always send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. That way you get notified whenever we do something new. Hit the like button while you're at it. That's always kind of nice. Makes us feel good. And then if you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can do that as well. Just search Gallup Webcasts on any podcast app and subscribe there. Faith Gaines is our host today. Faith's an executive director for consulting and a Gallup certified strengths coach. Faith, welcome to Call to Coach.
Thank you, Jim. It's good to be here. I'm a longtime listener, but a first-time caller. So thanks for having me.
I was kind of wondering, I think I've had you on at least once before, right? Or is this the first time you've hosted with me?
I think this is the first time. Well, we've done other things. Awesome. Well, we did do it at the summit one year live.
We did.
It is the second time. That's right.
We did. And I think I've done some calls with you. So always great to have you. Always great to see you. Give us a little bit of your background on what you do for Gallup, kind of what you get paid to do. Weave in your top five, or you can just kind of tell us your top five in the context of that if you want to. And then why are you in Nairobi? So answer all those questions for us, Faith.
Definitely. So I'll start with the first one. Why am I in Nairobi? So my husband is a diplomat, and so we are assigned here for 2 years. And Gallup is really great and has a really flex work from anywhere policy. So I have the opportunity to work from here, and I get paid to do 3 things. The first is to design and then operationalize our strategy for our Middle East and North Africa. The second is to really help our clients use Gallup tools to fix their broken workplaces, whether that's culture, employee engagement, leadership development, or customer centricity. And then the third thing is I get to develop and coach team members from across the organization to help them reach their career goals. And my top 5, I'm going to give you my top 10. Is that okay?
Ooh, yeah.
I own all 10. Okay.
Please, I like it.
So I have individualization, learner, maximizer, relator, ideation, self-assurance, intellection, competition, futuristic.
Ooh, I like the competition in there. So it's going to be a good one today. You're going to want this one to be the best because we are in the last of the 5. So we've been working through each one of the elements of well-being. Ryan Wolf kicked us off with physical well-being. We had Ronnie and Maria come talking about financial, social, and community. Jim Harder came on and talked about that. You're wrapping us as we think about career well-being. Faith, why is, and I think everybody kind of knows this, but I think just to get to set it straight, why is career well-being so important? And I think maybe for us, because we spend so much time working, but give us a little background on why career well-being and why do you focus on it so much?
Yeah, I think you alluded it to there. I think most of us spend most of our lives at work. And when we think about the 5 elements of well-being that you just highlighted, career well-being significantly impacts all the other areas, right? So if you have low career well-being, it impacts your physical well-being, your social, your financial, your all four of those elements as well. Mm-hmm. Community well-being as well. Thank you. And so at the core of it, we define it as really liking what you do every day and being motivated to achieve your goals. But it's really surprising that globally, only 20% of people strongly agree that they have an opportunity to do that on the day-to-day basis. So there's a huge part of the workforce, at least, that's not career fulfilled. But it definitely has implications for everything from, health, mental health, emotional health, but also in a time like we're in 2020, when it's the year, many people are calling it the year of the reset, right? I think it's an opportunity just for people to really explore and evaluate if, what they get to do every day really gives them energy, whether it's their passion, whether it's their purpose, and how they can better leverage their talents and who they are to really meet it.
You're a Gallup certified strengths coach. And so one of the reasons I brought you on is because you have that unique, you work both in our practice as far as as we help companies do this. And then you also can take it from the perspective of a certified strengths coach. And so if I was a Gallup certified strengths coach, you were going to give me some advice about how to help people do this. What kind of things can coaches do, to maybe questions to ask, or what kind of stuff could they do to begin to get people to think about this? I don't like what I do. I don't like where I work. I don't like what's going on. How do I start that process, Faith?
Definitely. It's such a great question. And I think at the core of it, it starts with who people are and helping them figure out what do they like to do? What gives them energy? What do they wake up in the morning? And they can't wait to get to do that, which I think our Gallup strengths, certified strengths coaches do that really beautifully, and just helping people understand who they are, what their natural talents are. And I think just as important it is to evaluate where you are in your career today and try to figure out what are the things that you enjoy most about your role, and what are the things maybe that you enjoy least about your role, because that could give you clues about whether or not you're in the right fit, depending on whether that balance is, yes, I spend 80% of my time doing what I love and 20% doing things that I have to do. But I think it really starts with just that, helping people understand what their talents are, and also helping them understand what they're not good at, because at the heart of career well-being is really that liking what you do every day. And if you don't have that deep appreciation for what makes you unique, what sets you apart, whether you're a coach or somebody working within an organization, I think it's hard to have that enjoyment and fulfillment.
Let's flip that on its head a little bit. Is think about organizations. Where
Mhm.
is it possible for organizations to look internally at their own kind of staff and start saying, do we have people lined up in the right roles, doing the right things? Can that same process, because it's very expensive, turnover is very, very expensive, and if I can convert someone from one role to another, that's a lot less expensive than letting them go and having to hire someone else. So can organizations make that flip too? Can they begin to look at, do we have the right people lined up? Have we done anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important for organizations, and specifically at the manager level, managers to be having those conversations, those career conversations with their teams around what gives the most energy, when are they most productive, what motivates them, and really understanding if people are in the right fit to role, because I think that makes a difference in all of the metrics we know, Jim, contribute to a great workplace, whether that's, engagement or well-being like we're talking about today. So I think if I were to take it into an organization, I would really equip and empower managers specifically to have in-depth conversations with people about who they are, their specific role, and who do they want to be? Where do they want to go in their career? I think is also an important question for managers to have a perspective about for everybody on their team as well.
Faith, it took me 30 years to find my career, and then it probably took me 20 more to find this career. So it's not like it happens overnight. But as we think about advice we give to people about, because this is an important, like, am I doing the right thing based on what I'm good at, what I'm talented in, where I've made investments in the past? How long should we expect that process to be? Does it have to be 50 years? Can it be fast? Can you give a little advice on that?
Definitely. I think it depends on people, and I think it really does evolve and change over time. I think even in my own journey, I started first in business development primarily, and then moved into more of account management, working directly with clients to construct solutions and help them operationalize it. And I found that I had a lot of energy there. And so I think it could take 50 years, it could take 5 years. I think a coach is one way that people can accelerate getting to that specific destination, because a coach can help them understand who they are, where they want to go, and the fastest way to get there. So I think my personal belief is everybody should have a coach. I think even coaches should have coaches, because I think it just helps you just gain a deeper appreciation and awareness for who you are, and help you make some of those tough decisions. But I think it is okay to transform and change over time. And change is the only thing that's constant, especially in 2020. So I think that it's all right to move from career to career for sure.
Yeah, I never saw, when we started podcasting, I never saw this event coming that would make us ready. I was in the right place at the right time, ready to create content in a now a completely virtual world, lining up some of those talents, some of the work that I'd put in, and just crazy timing. Like nobody knew this was going to happen. Faith, how important is the role then of investing in ourselves? Like, it's great we can ask these questions and talk about this and think about it with a coach, but can you talk a little bit about what do we have to do? From an individual standpoint, what do we have to do to make those investments for change?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great question, Jim. And I think one of the greatest investments you can make is in yourself. I once had a mentor who told me that you can only take your clients to the level that you're at in terms of your skill set, right? And so the more that you're able to increase your skill sets, whether through courses, whether it's investing in a coach like we talked about, yourself, that allows you to refine your skills and be able to help people at a higher level, right? To really serve at a higher level than you'd be able to. So I'm a huge fan of mastering your craft. When I first started at Gallup, our CEO, Jim Clifton, he said, welcome to Gallup and, figure out what you want to be the best in the world at and continue to invest in that over time. And I really just held that with me and it stuck with me. And I think it really does make a difference when you're consistently investing and growing yourself. And one of the things I do personally is I have an hour of learning scheduled on my calendar. I have a learner in my top 5, as I said. My dream would be just to do it all 8 hours of the day, but I can't do that, right, Jim? So,
Yeah. Well,
so
you could sure try.
I could try. I can
Yeah.
try, but it's an hour. I protect it really intently, but it's an hour where I'm learning about my clients, I'm learning about myself, or I'm investing and learning about the topics that are top of mind, either for us as an organization internally or for the stakeholders that we serve externally. But I really do think that you can only serve at the level that you grow, and so it's really important to invest in yourself as a coach.
Faith, we've been spending a lot of time at Gallup talking about managers. They're having a conversation in the chat room about it now. We have this concept of managers going from a boss to coach. How important at the manager level is this for managers to see this kind of to answer both questions? Do I have people lined up in the right place? Am I getting them the development that they need to learn and grow? How important is that for managers to understand that? And how does that coaching play in with that?
Yeah, I think it's really critical. And when we look at our data, we know that 70% of the variance of engagement within a workplace is due to a manager. And we say people don't leave companies, they typically leave a bad manager. And so it is really important for managers to make that pivot from that old command and controls type of leadership to more coaching, right? Where they're coaching people around helping them find their purpose. They're coaching them around their strengths. They're giving them continual feedback because what we do see is it pays dividends in terms of performance on the back end for the people that they serve. But we also recognize that that's really a hard pivot to make for most managers. If you've been, managing for 25, 30 years and someone comes in and tells you you need to change everything you're doing, I think naturally people would be resistant to that. But I think when they start to see the return on investment for making that shift, and the difference just in terms of their own well-being, but also the well-being of their people, they're more likely to keep going along that. But I think managers are really, really critical. And even when we look around the world at engagement numbers, I think it shows us that we probably have more managers leading from the old style than the new style. We have about 35% of employees that are engaged globally, so just a little bit over 3 in 10. And those numbers do change, in certain geographies. I think Asia's our highest with about 50%, but it ranges from anywhere from 35 to 50%. So about half your workforce coming in not engaged. So I think that ability for managers to pivot and to learn the specific coaching skills that they need is really pivotal for just the leadership of today. I was going to say leadership of the future, but the future is here. So leaders of today.
We spent some time early in the year, very beginning of the pandemic, talking about the 5 conversations. Right, this comes right out of It's the Manager. These 5 different types of conversations that managers can be having with their staff, with their employees, those that they're coaching. Let's say in this case that they're not bossing around anymore, but that they're coaching. And so we have those for you. So if you go to Gallup.com and search 5 conversations, those are available. We created one on each. But certainly this developmental conversation, this idea of, are we positioning you right? I am, living proof of that. Even in my career at Gallup, right up to this point where when COVID hit and the pandemic took force, I went full time. I had been doing recruiting and podcasting and webcasting. And my manager said, well, you're going to go full time webcasting now because there isn't a lot of recruiting to do and we need you. And so there was a pivot of a change of my manager saying to me, you know what your responsibilities are now, right? We
Mm.
know what you need to do. So in a great coaching conversation, I didn't have to think hard about that one. I just said kind of yes to that. But that was actually a conversation we had early in the pandemic. And I think it's really, really important managers have those, lay out those expectations. I kind of felt like it was moving in that direction, but I kind of needed my manager to validate it. That doesn't happen unless I'm having actual conversations, right, with my manager, and a lot of time those don't happen. So, Faith, how do we define success in this? It's easy to talk about these things, and
Yeah.
for me, I define success. I've had a very successful. We did more webcasts from January through June than I did all of last year responding to the pandemic. That's an easy way of measuring success. That's not easy for everyone. Faith, how do we go about this? If we're making these changes, how do we define success?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Jim. And I think, and I encourage people I coach to define success for themselves. I think often in our careers, success is defined for us, right, by other people. There's kind of a blueprint that we've created in terms of the expectations that we have, or family has, or society has about what it means to be successful. And I think, especially in the times that we're in today, I'm seeing a lot more people revisiting what their definition of success is and making it more holistic, right? Looking beyond just the climbing of the corporate ladder, but looking also for the contributions that they're making, right? The connections and the deep relationships that they have, how they're giving back to their community. And I think it's important that, that definition of success is connected to a really, really strong why. I think for me early in my career, my definition of success was really about kind of title or where I wanted to go. And as I've evolved in my career, I really started to just think about what contribution I wanted to make, what difference I wanted to make in the world, and how I wanted to best serve both our clients, our teams, and my friends and family as well. And so my definition is a little bit more rounded right now. And I think the other piece about the definition of success is early on in my career, I thought that, work life balance was a myth. I thought it had to be an equal equation. If I worked 50 hours and I needed to have 50 hours of freedom. And so I think that's also important just to define what work life balance means for you and to really evolve it based on the season that you're in life, because I know that changes as well. And so now I have less barriers between work and life. I think it's a lot more fluid, but it works for me. It works for our family as well. And so I think it's important to also, as a manager, to really know what the definition of success and the career aspirations of the people that you work with are and where they want to go, and to be flexible to change and adapt with them when they need to, based on things that are happening. I'm seeing a lot of people now reevaluating both success, but also reevaluating the career that they're in. I think this year has really encouraged people to think about, am I in the right role? Am I in the right job? Should I be in another job, right? Or should I be in another career? So I think just even thinking about that allows people to go to the origin of where their definition of success comes from, and also gives them the freedom to explore something different if it makes sense for them.
Those are such great words that you just said there. I would encourage folks to go back and really dig into that, just the last 2 minutes of what you said. As you were saying, and this week, we've been spending a ton of time on Theme Thursday this season, thinking about talent mindfulness, this idea, thinking about what's going on around you. And I've tried to be a little more in tune to how my body is feeling about work. Like when I am in doing work, how am I feeling about it at the moment? And Monday and Tuesday of this week, I just went after some things. There were some work that needed to be done. I was doing 10 or 12-hour days just because I wanted to crush it. Like I wanted to get this in and done. It was important work. By Wednesday afternoon, I just couldn't get started. Like I couldn't get my motor started. And I remember thinking, I'm going to go do something different. So Wednesday afternoon, I didn't say I'm taking the day. I didn't say I'm taking time off. I just thought about, learned some things, did something different for a couple hours, 3-4 hours, just took my mind off it, did something different, just spent some time. It was a real micro adjustment that I don't know if I've ever really kind of done for the most part, of even in the midst of a week, not the career, not maybe a project, but even during a week, to kind of think through, like, okay, I can't sustain this week. I'm going to need to take a little downtime during the week. At least think of something different. And so for me, defining success was, how did I feel on Thursday? Like
Hmm.
when I woke up Thursday morning, how do I feel? How do I feel about what I'm doing? Am I ready to get going? Is it that simple? I mean, can that be a component of how do I feel about my role today?
Definitely. I think that's really important. I think people think of it really at the macro level normally when they're thinking about the success, but I think the micro is really important, in terms of figuring out what is fulfillment for you on Thursday, for you as the
Yeah.
example you just gave, or
Yeah.
what does success look like for me today is really important to continue to evaluate and have flexibility in that. And I think our talents really give us clues when it comes to this. And so over the last probably 2 years, I've been experimenting with strengths stacking or strength spares to try to figure out what combination of strengths do I lean into in what order when I'm in a specific situation. So if I wake up and I just don't have the energy or I'm not motivated, for me, the strengths I have to lead with is learner first. If I can listen to a podcast, read a book, or anything like that that really feeds my brain. I go learner, ideation, my maximizer, and then my achiever can make a list for what I need to do. So I think it's also important to look at strengths from a success perspective and figure out, what strengths show up for you in what situations, and how can they help you pull you forward in those moments where you may not be, ready or as motivated or excited to do the things that you need to do as well.
So great. I have this. I was talking to you about this in the pre-show. I have this arranger maximizer combo that likes to move things around, and not necessarily for any reason, but could it be better this way? And so I'm constantly adjusting and adapting my background here in the home studio, just moving things around. Oh, I kind of like this over here, and I like these things over there. That's actually a very calming thing for me. So for some people that creates chaos. They get uncomfortable. They want things to be the same way. I actually like them to be different, which puts me in a great spot to be career wise, where, things like the pandemic shook everything up. I was like, bring it on. This was okay. Let's do some things differently. Like this series was born out of a response. This resiliency series was born out of a response to that. I thrived under that. Not everybody does, by the way, right? So I think your point is looking, and I think this is where coaches can really help, right? Is looking at someone's themes. How can we really maximize those, or how can we take advantage of those? Exploit is a word that I like to use sometimes. How can we exploit those for positive momentum, for positive gain going forward? How can I take advantage of those in these times and really make it work in a way? So I think coaches have a great responsibility, whether they're managers or not, to help folks see those. And so if it's leaving clues, how important, and Faith, we talked about this in during social and community well-being, the importance of giving.
Yes.
How in our career can we give back? How can that go beyond, because it feels so good to give. Like I think
Yeah.
we underestimate helping people and the power of that. How in our careers can we bring this element of giving in give? How can we do that?
I think there's lots of ways that you can do it. I think as a coach, you can, potentially do it in terms of giving away a couple of free coaching sessions to specific people, or mentoring and coaching upcoming coaches in the business is another way that you can give back. I think of it, within Gallup, it's mentoring people, it's giving feedback, it's also with our clients going above and beyond what they expect in terms of your relationship. I think is a really, really great way to give, and it makes such a huge difference, especially in the times that we're in today, whether it's a small thing or a big thing. I think we just need to give more than we receive is a kind of a value that I was raised with in our household, and it's just a mantra that I've carried with me. And I think in a year like we're in now, and Jim, you mentioned this, where for some people, they're viewing it as a really tough, really difficult, really challenging year, and it really has been for a ton of people. And so I think just that need to connect human to human and uplift and just touch people soul to soul goes a long way, especially in a year like we've had this year.
The audience has heard me, and I threw it out to the audience. I want to hear how you guys are giving back. This would be a great opportunity, I think, to get some chat room involvement here.
Yeah.
Faith, for me, and if you've been listening to any of these, you know this, but I've been doing virtual happy hours every Friday since this thing started. So John Cleveland here, a good friend of mine at Gallup. We get together every Friday afternoon. We'll do it again today. And it's just been that way of connecting. And he kind of gives me a rundown on his week, and we're doing kind of similar things. And so I help him do some things. He's given me some great ideas on some ways to implement some things here. So it can kind of be as simple as that. Chat room, some stuff coming out of the chat room, talking about mentoring others.
Mhm.
Definitely mentoring. Nate says definitely mentoring. Always be giving. Faith, let me ask you, like, as we think about mentoring relationships, can you talk about that really quick? Because that's an easy thing to say, but when you think of mentoring, what are those responsibilities, or what are you really doing in a mentoring role?
Yeah. So in a mentoring role, I think you are first beginning with understanding and getting to know your mentee as much as possible. So understanding what their unique strengths are, what their blind spots are, what their aspirations are, how are they defining success and where they're trying to go. And then I think it's both formal and informal. So it's kind of the formal development and coaching where you're having consistent meetings with them, whether it's reading a book together or it's helping them understand and go deep on a specific topic. And sometimes it's just helping them understand the landscape of the workplace that you're in and giving them advice around that. But it's also the informal of, hey, this just happened at work and I need a sounding board or someone to talk to or advice. So I think it's both kind of those two things. But I think if you have a clear understanding of who the mentee is, where they're trying to go, and how your strengths connect and how you can help them get there, I think that makes a successful mentor relationship for sure. And I always say that I think as a mentor, you can also learn a ton from the mentee. So I think there's also a piece of that humility, right? And just that there's a lot that they can give you too in terms of their experiences or their perspectives and the way they view the world that's additive to the relationship as well.
I think a really key. Lisa makes a point that she says she asks everyone in every situation to share how they're taking care of themselves, and I think that's like really really key. We can't just assume it's happening. How are things
Yeah.
going? And then don't let fine be the default answer. Don't let that be like, how is it really going? I have this good friend Micah who can sense in my voice when things aren't right or when they are right, and she'll sense, because we spent so much time together. She'll sense and she'll say, no, really, like, okay, now really tell me how that's going. Let me ask you, Faith, you're in Nairobi, you're a long way away from home. You're
Mhm.
how are you staying connected in career well-being and Nairobi, a different place? You're there for a short period of time. It's almost like military service because you're there and you're not. Like, you don't want to
Mhm.
put too many roots down. So, how's that going for you? And how are you managing your career well being during this time of change and a global pandemic?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the introvert in me has welcomed the alone time that we're able to have as a result of the pandemic. So I think from a self development perspective, I do a lot of reading, listening to podcasts. I also love learning with other people. So book clubs and things like that, I think are also have been really helpful in connecting with other people. But I've also had to be a lot more intentional. I think a lot of things happened by default before the pandemic, whether it was, running into someone in the hallway or seeing someone out. And now it takes a lot more intentionality to schedule that time, like you were talking about the happy hour that you have. And so it's also reaching out to people in the organization, other subject matter experts, to learn from them, hear from them has also really helped with the career well-being. And I think the other piece is, as you mentioned, success leaves clues. So I've been trying to study people who are, at the levels that I want to be at from a career perspective or a family perspective, and just trying to see what are the systems that they've used to get that specific success. Is another thing that I've really been leading into as well.
I've discovered I'm a little more introverted than I thought I was during this pandemic. I've enjoyed. People think that's weird, but I've enjoyed the time alone. I've enjoyed my alone time, and I thought I would struggle with it more, and it's actually been really good. That's maybe a clue. Like, all of a sudden, for years, for 50 years, I've thought I was a very extroverted person because I lived in an extroverted world and I was good at it.
Mm.
But then when the situation changed and I was kind of forced to being not extroverted anymore, now I still get to do this. So this kind of fills fills that bucket, right? But I started thinking, oh, okay, I've learned a few things about myself. Maybe I'm, again, those clues, like, oh, maybe I was not as extroverted as I thought I was in this. And so I think there's some indicators there for me going back, as we're thinking about going back now, and I look at the clues, I start going, okay, when the world returns to whatever the new normal is, maybe I go about it a little bit differently than I went before. Maybe there's some things I'm really, really productive in these at home alone times where I wasn't before. I'd come home from work frustrated because I was like, I didn't get enough work done, right? So I think some great opportunities in there. Mark says he's going to work with 10 first T high school seniors and juniors in their leadership team. And Justin follows up and says, quite a lot of free coaching support to people, especially people that have lost their jobs. Those are, I think, great opportunities to give back as well. Anything else you would add to that?
I think I have a soft spot in my heart for coaches because I think it's such a unique role that you have where people invite you in, especially in a year like we're in today. And you help kind of create light, right? You help them kind of rise above and see the world from a different perspective. I think it's also just that need I think we all have collectively right now just to focus on what's right, focus on what's good, I think is another gift that coaches definitely give to the people that you get to work with. And so I think that, yeah, I think it's a great time to think about giving in a small way or a big way. My husband and I are looking each day, each morning to see, how can we impact, who can we support, who can we touch, whether it's just connecting via phone, right, and giving them the space to talk or doing big things. But I think to your point, there's something that's magical when you step outside of yourself and you look for opportunities to really serve and connect with other people as well. So I love those examples that were given there in the chat in terms of coaching other people, giving out free coaching, but also even the simple thing that Lisa mentioned, just asking people, how are you really, I think is also a great way that you can give.
Yeah. And then listen, I have some work to do in that area, right?
Yeah.
I need to listen more, like ask and then really listen. One final question for you as we kind of wrap this, how important, as we think about career well-being, we haven't mentioned the F word, which is family in this at all. How does the family fit into this? And do we have any advice, or as we think about, because we always think that's at work, but yet the family unit is very, very important in all things. You're moved because of a family member, right? In this, how important is it that we take family and that consideration into mind in our career well-being?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And this is probably my individualization speaking, but I think it's different for everybody, depending on your family, the size of the family, the connection to them. I think it's very important for me. I talked at the beginning about having a clear why, right, for what you're doing, whether you're a coach within an organization or an independent coach. And for me, my why is my family, right, wanting to improve, give back, support. And so it's very important for me. It impacts everything from my schedule to how often I travel. There's a lot of inputs that I collect in making decisions about not just what's best for me, but what's best for my family as well. So I think it's definitely a critical component. I think it impacts how happy you are in your career as well. I think if you have a family that's supportive of your career, understands why you're doing what you're doing, why you're working the late hours, I think it definitely makes it a lot easier for sure.
I spent some time kind of roping my daughter into my career in a lot of ways. She's a listener of Theme Thursday and big strengths advocate. And so we get to spend some time sharing that commonality to it. She's graduating this fall from college, and we'll be doing, and I want her, I think I can learn some of the things I've learned in media. I can help her with as she gets started in her career in journalism. Speak about a career field that has been completely disrupted. I mean, it was bad before the pandemic, but it's really bad now. But I'm excited to be able to partner with her in that area and give back, say, here's what I've learned in this, and to kind of take that and help another family member to be able to do that. So as we think about the giving and the family, because I think like any of the other elements, if one of them's broken, the others are going to suffer because of it. And so hopefully, as we kind of wrap this series, and we're going to spend a bunch of time in 2021 talking about this. We have a big manager series that's coming up on this, but we're going to really kind of dig into leadership and some of these pieces of well-being and how they all fit in. I think it's really, really important we kind of look at all those things around us, those 5 elements, and make an honest inventory and kind of say, where are we today? Faith, if I asked you, how are you today? And those, if you were to kind of evaluate your 5 elements of well-being, what are you doing well, and what could you do better on?
Yeah, I think where I'm doing really well is career well-being, and I've made an intentional decision to invest in physical well-being this year. I think prior to 2020, the only time I was running was after a food truck, but now I've put a system in place, right? Because that's not something I do naturally, but I put a system in place, and I have an accountability partner who makes sure that I work out, at least 6 times a week. So I think that one
Yeah.
is definitely going well, and so is financial. I think there's definitely more I could be doing on community. I think there's opportunities to expand beyond my current network. So as a relator, I tend to stick within my own groups, but I need to borrow some of your woo, Jim, and kind of expand out a little bit. So I think that one definitely I could work on. How would you rate yourself, Jim? What's
Yeah,
going well?
so
And
everything's flipped, and
yeah,
career is at an all-time high. Like, and people like, really? Yeah. No, I just really like what I'm doing right now. I get an opportunity to do what I do best every day. I've got the materials and equipment to do my job. I've got a great manager. Like, all those things are really, really working. The physical well-being, which is an area I've excelled at for the last 10 years, has just taken it on the chin. And I'm a little worried about it. I'll be honest with you. I've gained the COVID-19, as everybody is saying, right? And that, whether that's 19 pounds or 19 kilograms, it's been a struggle. And so I've got to think about ways. We're coming into winter here in the United States, and so it's going to get even more difficult. So I kind of think, and we're starting to shut some things down. So I got to kind of start thinking through, okay, I've got some things. Adam Hickman, who's been on the show before, he hit me an email the other day, was like, it was actually a Teams. He's like, hey, I'm going to say go, and you got to drop and do 20 push-ups right then, as we're right. and it was just really cool because he was thinking about me. I'd shared that with him, and he was thinking about me. And so he was trying to encourage me to kind of get back into that area. Is it critical yet? No, I just had a physical and things were okay. So it's like, okay. I'm not, to me, it's not critical, but I got some work to do. And so I love this conversation we get to have around this, right? Much like strengths puts a framework around our talent and our talent themes and the things that we do, I think well-being puts this framework around kind of how we feel about things, how we're actually doing. And it gives us this ability to talk in ways that are fairly universal. So I'd encourage folks, if they haven't, dive in. We've got the Wellbeing book. We have a brand new Wellbeing book coming out in March, which we're excited to share more focused. The first book was focused on the individual. Book 2 will kind of be a sequel to It's the Manager and really kind of focus in workplaces and well-being. But I think a great opportunity to discuss it in a way that's very helpful and very positive. Faith, anything else you want to add before we wrap it?
Oh, I think you said it perfectly. Thank you for having me. Thank you to everyone for joining today. I think continue to invest in yourself, invest in your career well-being. But as Jim mentioned, focus on all of those 5 areas as best as you can, because it really does make a difference for your fulfillment, but also for those that are around you as well.
Well, I think with that, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available now on Gallup Access. So head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths. While you're there, sign up for the Clifton Strengths Community Insight newsletter, a great way to stay connected to us. And it might be one of those career well-being opportunities for you, just to get a monthly update from us in your inbox and to kind of follow along with everything that we're doing here. The link is at the bottom of every page at gallup.com, so you can sign up for that today. For coaching, master coaching, or to become a Gallup certified strengths coach, of course, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. We'll have somebody get back with you and give you more information around those. Join us on any social platform by searching Clifton Strengths. And thanks for listening today. If you enjoyed it, please share it. If you're listening live, we'll do a little bit of a post show. I saw a few questions we didn't get to, so we'll have a little bit of a post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.